Hey everybody, and welcome to the 8th episode of the Chainsaw Reacts podcast. Like last week's episode, today's podcast is going to be focusing on three topics, and those topics are the first official photo of the Deadpool costume tweeted out by Ryan Reynolds himself. So we finally get our first glimpse of Deadpool. I'm going to start off with that. The next topic is going to be talking about the reveal of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. And the last topic, we're going to go throw back to the childhood days of my era and talk about Justice League and the Justice League Unlimited animation show, because I'm currently binge watching that on Netflix. So I want to get into that a little bit at the end of this podcast. So without any further ado, without any wasting more time and rambling on in the intro, let's jump into Deadpool first reveal by Ryan Reynolds. So, Ryan Reynolds today, out of nowhere, decided to tweet out the first official look at the costume of Deadpool and what is assuming that he is inside the costume. And the picture, as you can see on screen here, is very, very interesting. He's laying on a bear rug in front of a fireplace, and it's just so perfect in my personal opinion, because it just showcases the silliness of Deadpool. Now, obviously, within the film and probably more promotional photos we'll get to see later on in the this year, and obviously next year before the release of the film, we'll get more funny pictures and we'll get some serious photos, and I just can't wait for them, because I didn't expect them to release a promotional photo, an actual reveal of him in the costume this early on, because he did tease a little while ago, a photo he obviously edited so you don't get to see any color. You can kind of see the mask of Deadpool and him standing right behind it looking at it, but you really couldn't tell like the coloring. Now obviously they're not going to make his color like black and blue or black and yellow. It's going to be black and red, obviously, but it was just that tease. And then all of a sudden, a few days after all this big reveals of other stuff and movie stuff going on, randomly out of nowhere, Ryan Reynolds, like Zack Snyder with the Aquaman photo we got about a month or so back, just randomly showed off the look of Deadpool, and it just the way it is, it's comedic, it's goofy, and at one point during the day they made the official Deadpool Twitter account promotional for the film, and the only thing at the current time, someone took a photo and I actually looked at it myself, the only person that the Deadpool Twitter account is following is Hello Kitty. I thought that was really funny. But I'm really excited about this film, because this promotional photo shows me that there will be comedic elements in the film, and that's really, really good, because you read the comic books of Deadpool. If you played the Deadpool video game they came out with on 360 and I think PS3, I think last year in 2014, I played it and I beat it within 2 days, and I loved the game. There was a lot of comedic moments. There were some bloody and violent moments, but there was a lot of comedy and breaking the fourth wall. And if that Deadpool game is any indication of what they might do in the films, I know they're not personally looking at the video game as inspiration, but if they decided to break the fourth wall and do all these comedic things and, censor his curse words, if they're going for a PG-13 rating, which I'll get to in a second about my thoughts about PG-13 versus R rating for the Deadpool film. But if they do that, I mean, it's just going to be so funny, and I think this will be Fox's most funny, like their most funny film they've done with a character, like a superhero character. Now, funny in the sense of they're going for funny, and not funny in the sense of where we're laughing at the first two Fantastic Four films that were supposed to be sometimes serious and sometimes funny, but everyone the whole entire time just laughed because it's ridiculous film. It's like, it's stupid. Why did you make this film? But I think Deadpool is going to have those comedic moments just by this photo itself. I hope that the blend of the film, just by looking at this photo and thinking about what direction they're going to take, I hope that the Deadpool film has the balance of comedic and the balance of some of the violence, because Deadpool is a very violent person, but he goes in a comedic way. So I'm hoping there are not too many serious moments, but enough to where it's not too comedic and like it's all a joke and none of this matters. Because the synopsis came out today and I was reading on it, and it's basically they're going to be telling the origins of the Deadpool character. So we're going to see him probably transform into Deadpool, or he already is Deadpool, but he's learning how to become the Deadpool and become this person and become this assassin and all this stuff. So that's going to be interesting to see, but I really do think that just by this photo, and I keep repeating myself, but this film is going to be really funny, and I can't wait to see it. I hope they break the fourth wall and speak to the audience, and Deadpool has all these funny moments. And there's been some talks of if we're going to see Ryan Reynolds' face in the film, because he'll have the mask on, of course, And I think that it's probably going to happen. You're probably going to see his face, but probably not too often. You're more than likely just going to see him in the full body costume. And he's going to obviously have lines while he's wearing the mask and all that. But, I mean, I think that we're going to see his face a few times, but probably not enough to where it's like, okay, well, all they're showing is his face and not enough of the full body costume, which people love to see. I mean, they love seeing that costume. They love seeing, him embody that and just destroy like hundreds of people at a time. So let's hope we get to see that. Now, there's been rumors and speculations of Colossus being in the film. Obviously, they're recasting Daniel Cudmore, who played Colossus in the original X-Men films and X-Men Days of Future Past. They're rumored that they're going to be having Colossus in the film. I'm not sure if they've confirmed that. They may have, but so apparently Colossus is going to be in the film. They're going to have other characters as well. So I'm hoping that this Deadpool film does not turn into the original X-Men Origins Wolverine film that was Wolverine and a bunch of mutants that you kind of don't care about, but you kind of do, but then you don't, so who cares? I hope that it's mainly focused on Deadpool and having these side characters doesn't deteriorate and pull away from the fact that this is a Deadpool film and not a Deadpool plus other mutants we want to introduce into this world that we haven't introduced yet. So here you go. Here they're taking up 30 minutes of the entire film and they're taking time away from the main character. I hope that's not the case. I hope that Deadpool is a part of the whole entire thing and we have these sub characters to get introduced to, get kind of a backstory a little bit, but they don't take away from the fact that we're finally getting a Deadpool film. This is the whole point of the thing. I mean, that test footage that came out last year that leaked was just perfect. I mean, it showcased the quirkiness and the action that Deadpool brings, and I mean, it blew up. And I think that it was confirmed that that it wasn't leaked by someone stealing. I've read online, and maybe it's not confirmed. Maybe they were just joking around. But it sounds like that people over at Fox or somebody had it and just put it out online out of nowhere, like as a leak, and then basically it blew up, and it gave Fox the reason to greenlit the film. And if that's the case, and that was their way of trying to get promotion to get people excited, so they could greenlit Deadpool by pretending, in quotes, to leak the test footage of the CGI fight in the SUV, then that's a perfect ploy. I mean, it's just awesome. So when's the next time we're going to get a Deadpool picture, promotional photo like this, or a serious one? Who knows? But I just can't wait to see this film because I want to see Deadpool done right. I think that Deadpool, in my personal opinion, besides the ending of X-Men Origins Wolverine, where Deadpool is basically mouth sewn shut, he's got all these different powers, when it was just Ryan Reynolds, even though he didn't have the mask on, but he was Deadpool for those little bits before he got his mouth sewn shut in X-Men Origins Wolverine, was one of the best parts of the film. So, seeing an actual origin and seeing an actual Deadpool film on screen, I think that Fox will do it justice. I think this time they will get it right because they fixed the timeline. They fixed all the issues with the X-Men, with X-Men Days of Future Past. So I believe that in the direction they're going, that Deadpool will be one of those films that will probably be a big hit. And people are thinking, well, it's probably going to be a big hit, but who knows? I personally think it's going to be a pretty big film. Now, before we move on to the Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor photo, the PG-13 versus R thing. Now, there's been a lot of comments and talks like online about this and saying how they personally believe Deadpool should be rated R because he's a very gruesome fighter. He cuts a lot of people's heads off. It's gruesome. He has a sword. I mean, come on. It needs to be an R-rated film. Deadpool is in the cinematic X-Men universe. Deadpool is a part of this universe. If they put out, since they've started this universe with X-Men First Class and X-Men Days of Future Past, connecting the old and new X-Men, and then having X-Men Apocalypse with the new cast, with also new people adding with the First Class cast plus new cast, and then having supposedly some cameos and maybe some minor roles with the original X-Men cast, the future cast. Involved, and so they're connecting that, and then apparently Fantastic Four, the reboot coming out later this year, is attached. Deadpool's attached, so you can't put out First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, Fantastic Four, which more than likely will be PG-13, and then have Deadpool, which is in the same cinematic universe as R, and having all these people getting their heads chopped off, their legs chopped off, all this bloody guts and things going on, but it's all comedic and fun, but you can't rate it PG-13 because there's too much blood and violence. Then it's going to feel weird because a lot of the audience that is attached to are trying to keep up with this cinematic X-Men, cinematic Fox universe with X-Men and Fantastic Four and the Deadpool will not be able to see Deadpool because they're not old enough to see it legally without their parents allowing them to watch it. So it would kind of confuse people if Deadpool shows up in a next X-Men film after X-Men Apocalypse or something, and then it does, and then like, well, oh, Deadpool, oh yeah, well, I didn't get to see his origin film, so I guess I'll have to just deal with this and just see him in this film. So I personally believe PG-13 is the way to go. They can push PG-13 really. They could really push it. I mean, they pushed it in recent years with Marvel films with X-Men Days of Future Past. They ripped Colossus in half. One of the Sentinels did in the future. I mean, that was pretty brutal. I mean, there was no blood, but it was brutal to watch. So they can push the PG-13 limit with Deadpool and still make it PG-13, still make it gruesome, but still have those comedic moments. But I mean, it doesn't have to be R just because of the comics. I mean, you can have the comics, but in the film, some things don't translate the film right. And I mean, if they want to make a cinematic universe, they're not going to have 7, 8, 9, 10 films in a Fox cinematic universe with X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Gambit, and these solo films of these X-Men characters or whatever, and then that one random Deadpool character that has maybe 2 or 3 films if the first one is successful, and they're all R-rated. It would just feel weird. So they have to keep it in context of, this is our universe, this is what we want fans to follow. We cannot allow one character or one small franchise with 3 films of this character be R-rated because some of our fans and some of the people will not be able to see it because of the rating. That's just my personal opinion. Let's take a sip of the drink and we'll move on to Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor and a little bit of talks of what I would like to see him be involved in with Batman v Superman. Okay, so we got our first glimpse of Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Now, a lot of people saw this photo and instantly said, who cares? It's just Jesse Eisenberg shaved. But he actually looks menacing in the photo. But at the same time, it's not really a reveal of Lex Luthor. It's really a reveal of Jesse Eisenberg with his head shaved. But this confirms officially that at some point in the film or throughout entire Batman v Superman film that Lex Luthor has no hair. He doesn't have any hair in this film. He is bald. And there's been a lot of talks about how extensive is Lex Luthor going to be involved in Batman v Superman. And there's been speculation and rumors, and I'll jump on a rumor right now that I think will be really cool. Now, this is a really plausible rumor. It makes sense because of the events of Man of Steel. The rumor is that Lex Luthor and Batman, aka Bruce Wayne, is going to team up together to rebuild Metropolis because of the events of Man of Steel, where Zod and Superman fought it out at the end and destroyed countless amount of buildings, killed a countless amount of people within their huge fight that they had all across the city, up in space and back down, blah, 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 back and forth, back and forth. So the rumor is that Lex Luthor and Bruce Wayne are going to team up to basically rebuild Metropolis. And this is why Batman, Bruce Wayne, does not like Superman, does not like him at all, and that's why the fighting is supposedly going to go down. So if this is the extent of Lex Luthor's involvement of this film, just this film, and not talking about later films, but just in Batman v Superman, where he's attached to Bruce Wayne and they're going to be rebuilding Metropolis and they're going to be doing this, and this is why Lex Luthor hates Superman because of what he did to Metropolis, then that makes perfect sense. It really does, because that shows that his hatred, there's a reason behind his hatred. Now, obviously, he could hate Superman for other reasons. He could hate him for this and for having superpowers and be able to fly. But, I mean, he could personally hate Superman for a really good reason, for destroying the city that he lives in, for destroying the city that he basically owns a company. And obviously, Lex Luthor could be too young to be involved. He could just be a guy that somehow gets involved with helping Bruce Wayne. He has the ideas and the technology, but he has no funding. He doesn't have Lex Corp yet. Or he could have Lex Corp. I don't know what direction they're going to go, but I mean, with the look that he has, and let's imagine him with that look, the bald look, and having a suit on, man, badass. I think it will look badass. Now, obviously, the one thing we do have to mention is that just because he looks the part does not mean he's going to do well in the part. Look at that picture. Just stare at it. You're looking at it right now. It's on screen. It's going to be there the entire segment because we have nothing else to show for this topic. Lex Luthor, has a very menacing voice. he has a very menacing voice. So imagine Jesse Eisenberg with the suit on, walking around and talking like a little kid. Because, I mean, not to be a douche and not to be mean, but Jesse Eisenberg's vocals, his voice is just not that menacing. I think he really has to dig deep and find a deeper voice to go into to really give a menacing sound to that character. Because, I mean, if he talks like he does in The Social Network, which I understand was a good film, I have not seen the entire film. I've seen some scenes with him involved, and I've seen other films that he's been a part of. And his voice, I mean, if he sticks with his regular voice in the film in Batman v Superman, I cannot personally take Lex Luthor seriously if his voice sounds like that, because he would sound like a whining child. He's just like, hey, you don't understand me. It would just really make me just laugh, because, like, wow, I can't take this seriously because you don't sound menacing. You don't have a deep voice, and you don't have any power behind your voice. You're just talking like a little whiny kid because Metropolis got destroyed and I don't trust you. You're crazy, Superman. It would just be really goofy in my personal opinion. So Jesse Eisenberg, if you're listening, which I know you're not because you're too big for this shitty podcast, make sure that your voice is deep. I really hope that you did that. I really hope you did. But besides his voice and what it could be, besides all of that, just by the look of what he looks like shaved, it looks cool. I think that no matter what his voice sounds like, he will at least look the part. How he delivers the part is a different question. Who knows exactly, but that's all I really got. I mean, I think that any of the other rumors they've talked about where he has a small role, I mean, that's kind of dumb. They announced him really far ahead of time as being Lex Luthor, so I think he has a pretty prominent role. And the rumor of him and Bruce Wayne, I always say Batman, but, Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor join up to basically rebuild Metropolis is probably the most plausible answer of why he's involved in the film and why he has a hatred for Superman in this universe. So let's hope that's the case. Another drink of the drink. Another drink of the drink. Another taste of the drink. A sip. I'm stupid as crap. Kill me now, please. Kill me now. Kill me now. Kill me now. Okay. So let's get into our last topic. And this podcast is probably going to be a little bit shorter, but I don't want to ramble on and go over 30 minutes just because, I want to talk about Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this show, I remember watching Justice League and Justice League Unlimited back in the day when it was first on TV when I was a young lad, a little kid, a teenager and all that. And the reason why I want to talk about it is because I'm currently binge watching now Justice League Unlimited on Netflix, because on March 30th, which is in a couple of days, I'm recording this on the 27th of March, that they're taking away Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and a couple other shows that are related to, I think they're also taking away Batman Beyond too, which sucks, but I want to talk about those two shows, and because those shows to me really show how awesome DC was back then to making these cartoons. Because the first Justice League show, I mean, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited are practically the same show, except Justice League Unlimited was moved to a different network, so they had to add the Unlimited to it at the end, and it's a continuation of the Justice League show. And the first episode of Justice League Unlimited is perfectly set up to showcase the transition from how they originally were in the first two seasons to now Justice League Unlimited having all these new characters come in. The two parts separating both. So Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. So Justice League, let's get to Justice League and talk about Unlimited a little bit later. Justice League focused on 7 members only. It had Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, The Flash, and Hawkgirl. And I really felt like that this show captured the characters so well, in my personal opinion. Now, what I personally didn't like that much within the Justice League show, the first 2 seasons before they changed the name and moved it and all this stuff and added new things in, which I'll talk about in a minute, that they had a lot of the episodes, like most of the episodes, were separated into 2 parts. They had these storylines, and they did part 1 and part 2. So back then when you were watching the show, if you'd missed part 1, you get a summarization, but you miss out on a lot of build-up from part 1 to part 2 of these storylines. And sometimes you didn't have all of the characters within these episodes. Sometimes it was the Flash and Green Lantern. There was one episode where it's Hawk Girl and Martian Manhunter or something like that, Superman and Wonder Woman or something. So they had all these separations where sometimes they're not all together at once, and it's those few episodes that happen within Justice League that have all of them together that I think is the better episodes, because we get to see their teamwork as a 7-member team, and not, okay, 2 or 3 of them are now within this part 1 and part 2 show and all that. So it had its ups and downs, because within Justice League you had the actual characters being, blah blah blah. They're this. We get to see more backstory about Superman. We get to get more insight in character development of Batman in this episode and this arc and this 2-part series, and Wonder Woman. So you get to see more of the character development within these shows when you have less people involved in a show, but when they're all together, you get to see that teamwork, like I've been saying. So that's a positive, though. On top of the fact that, in my personal opinion, a negative is having these stories that go for longer than one part. That's the negative, where they go on longer than one part. But the positive is you get the more character development and showing off their skills, and then basically telling the story that obviously would be really rushed down to one part. So there's some negatives and positives within there. So, and I thought it was kind of interesting that they went with the whole Hawk Girl and Green Lantern romance within the show. And then, of course, the final story they did before they went to Justice League Unlimited was a 3-part series involving Hawk Girl's homeland, and basically the Thanagarians, I believe. Yeah, Thanagarians, I believe, showing up at Earth and then basically causing trouble. So that was really, really cool. I mean, I love that series. I finished it. I thought it was a really, really good startup to what Justice League Unlimited brings a little bit later. But, I mean, Justice League, if you've not personally seen the animated show, it's really worth the watch if you're a fan of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, The Flash, and Hawk Girl. Then you're definitely going to want to see the show, because it really goes into a lot of their character developments, and you get to learn some really interesting stuff, and there's some funny lines, and overall it's just a good show with a lot of really awesome action. And it shows that, these characters, even though they are superheroes and they have amazing powers, they are limited to what they can do. There are enemies out there that takes more than what they can really do to really defeat these villains, and it shows that they're not invincible. They're not gods. They are, superheroes that have limitations, and I like that, because if they were just completely 100% invincible, then none of these episodes would matter, because they always win no matter what. There has to be some moments where there are limitations, and they can't defeat this particular person right now. They have to literally push themselves to be better. Let's get off into Justice League Unlimited, which is a continuation of the show. They had to move it to a different network. So they said, okay, well, let's change the show name. And I think they had to do that for legal reasons. So they changed the show name and kept it on with the tradition of a continuation. It's kind of like a sequel series to the original. So the way they did it is that basically the start of Justice League Unlimited, the very beginning, was that they were focusing on they're having a lot more superheroes like Supergirl, and they had all these other characters coming in that are now part of the Justice League, the main 6, because Hawk Girl, spoiler, left at the end of Justice League. So now it's just the 6 regular Justice League members from Justice League who are now the leaders of the Justice League, and now they have all these superheroes, and they do coordination where they're sent out on missions, sent out on different things that are happening in the world, and that's how they separate it out. And so there's some episodes where you get to see Green Arrow and Canary together. You get to see the Atom and Green Lantern in an episode, so you're getting introduced to new characters, and there's some episodes dedicated to certain characters, and there's some episodes dedicated to the entire Justice League, like the main group, and then having the other characters that were thrown into this actual Justice League group. You don't get to see that much, but they're involved, and you get to see them using their powers. So we get introduced to a lot more characters. One other positive, besides adding a bunch of new characters, so we get to see more character development and seeing these Justice League and DC characters come to life within the actual Unlimited show, is that they really pulled back on the part 1 and part 2 shows, where they had a lot of episodes dedicated. It's dedicated to one. There's only a part 1. There's no part 2. It's a singleized episode focusing on these particular superheroes or this particular issue within the story of the Justice League Unlimited, and that was it. So you moved on to the next one, and you don't have to worry about a part 2 to the story. The story ended on the same episode it started. So I like that a lot. And I think that it shows that, that they were going to take on this challenge of introducing characters that we have seen in the DC comics, or you may not have heard of them, but now you get to see them on an animated show. I mean, they really add just a bunch of new villains, a bunch of new superheroes that you would not have seen in the Justice League original show because they focused on the main seven. So now we have Seven Hawk Girl. Spoiler, comes back to the show. I won't explain why she left or why she comes back, but basically they really introduce a lot of new characters, and it's just cool to see them. It's cool to see these characters, and it's just exciting. And I really wish that DC would look at these shows and do it again. Come up with a newer, maybe not Justice League Unlimited or Justice League, or maybe they could, but I mean, it'd be cool if they decided to redo a animation show about the Justice League, or talking about another character, like another Superman or another Batman, or a Green Lantern, animated show. I mean, it would just be really cool if they decided to go back in that type of thing. I know they're doing the cinematic universe, but I mean, watching these shows, I mean, the writing is really good. A lot of the episodes are really good. I mean, I feel like that the action was really, really good. There's an episode where Superman is fighting somebody. I'm not going to mention who, but it was an intense fight, and it was like, wow, this is really, really awesome. And I mean, it's just, they really put a lot of effort into the show. And so if you've not seen Justice League or Justice League Unlimited, I highly recommend checking them out as soon as you possibly can, because they are worth the watch in my personal opinion. So that's the end of the podcast, guys. Thank you guys for listening to this short and sweet podcast. Once again, thank you guys for listening, and that's the end for me. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts about the Deadpool picture, the thoughts about the Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor picture, and your thoughts if you've seen the show on Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for listening one more time. Peace.